Well, it's something the Bills, their fans, are all too familiar with. The season coming to an end at the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. This time, an AFC Championship game. 32-29, the final. KC moves on to their third straight Super Bowl. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast. As always, with Andy Young with the team out at Arrowhead.
Hey there, Kevin. Disappointment, utter devastation for many players in the Bills locker room after yet another year where they fall short of their goal to win a Super Bowl, and it comes at the hands of who else but the Kansas City Chiefs. Just a tough pill to swallow for Bills Mafia and this entire organization.
I was going to say, we eyed this Chiefs team all year, and we talked about this during the post-game show. Chiefs struggled to get to 30 points the entire season. Bills were known for always getting to 30 points. And just the look of this score, Andy, 32-29. Bills didn't quite get to 30. They had issues on offense and defense the entire day. But like the Bills are, as long as you have Josh Allen there, they were always in this game. But, man, it just never seemed like this team settled in.
Yeah, defensively was tough to watch at first because the Chiefs were able to do whatever they wanted, really, through the passing game. And as well, Patrick Mahomes running the football and really hurting them that way. Xavier Worthy, worst nightmare for Bills fans, the guy who the Bills traded a pick for the Chiefs to let them go up and draft him. They take Keon Coleman. Worthy has a good game. But defensively, you're in a big spot again. First half struggles, as we saw many times throughout this season. Chiefs looked like they could do anything they wanted to. And I said at halftime, the Bills need to make one or two stops to give themselves a shot to win this football game because I thought the offense could start to move the football. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened. The Bills came out in the second half, made some adjustments, got punts on the first two drives of the second half in the third quarter for the Chiefs. And then the Bills come back and take the lead. And you're thinking, all right, this is exactly what you need. But you have lapses late. They let a late touchdown happen for the Chiefs, and then the go-ahead field goal late happen, and it does them in. So once again, in a big spot, the Bills' defense doesn't show up as it should the entire game, allow the Chiefs the most points they've had all season long. And here we are, singing the same old tune that we've been singing for 5 years.
And the other same old tune, Andy, is social media now abuzz with Josh Allen's fourth down. Many think that he converted it. He did not, according to the refs. Pictures tell 1,000 words, Andy, or however that saying goes. But it sure looked like, to my naked eye, to Stevie Johnson's naked eye, to still shots that we're seeing after the game, that Josh Allen did pick up that first down there. I mean, at the end of the day, too bad. You should have done more to go win this game. You can't just put it all on that. But still, you could imagine for Bills fans, frustrating once again that it's just something that didn't seem to go their way, that it seems blatantly obvious that the Bills should have got the first down there and kept that drive going.
Yeah, as you're saying that, Kevin, it's almost prophetic what Josh Allen kept saying during the week, that he had a conversation with Von Miller earlier in the season, I believe, or even before the season started, that said, look, as long as you give it your best, sometimes it just doesn't go your way and you'll be okay with whatever happens. Well, that played out, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Something didn't go their way. And it's tough because I thought that he had that first down too. It's really close. But at the end of the day, the Bills didn't do enough in those situations all game long. How many times did you see that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 was automatic for the Bills this season? And it wasn't tonight. The Chiefs did a great job of stopping that. And so they made it close and they left it up to the refs. And that's a poor way to live because for whatever reason, that let them down in this one, whether that was the right call or not. I know a lot of people who have slowed the play down or look at the still shots, saw Josh Allen get over that, and they probably got robbed there. But there's more plays in that game than just that. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of game left at that point. And to be in this position and blame the officials, yes, you can blame them for that play, but there were many other plays and opportunities for the Bills in this football game that they just did not make. And we've talked about it so much. The margin is so slim to beating the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Bills cost themselves when it mattered most. And the Chiefs had an early turnover. Mahomes wasn't by any means perfect in this game, but they just did one more thing or had one more little bit of a push to make the plays when it mattered most, and the Bills didn't get the job done.
I know we talked after the win over the Ravens in the divisional round that the Bills at times in the game against the Ravens stuck with something even though they knew it wasn't working, but eventually it all worked out for them in the end. Is today an example of sticking with something for too long that you should have known, listen, the Chiefs have this covered. We got to come up with something different on short yardage to pick up the first down rather than go with the tush push constantly throughout this game. We saw them 4th and 2, 4th and 1, and whatnot throughout the entire game. Just go to it, even though it hadn't worked at all the entire evening.
Yeah, and you could sure use those 4 points you missed on missed 2-point conversions, right? And one of them being one of those tush-push situations. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard in game to think that they're going to stop you on that play as many times as they did, right? And you think the odds are you're going to make it work. Go back to the Rams game when the tush-push situation didn't work, and it cost them because then they had to burn the timeout and that whole situation.
Right.
They lost a game that way. So that failed them in one of their biggest spots. And the Chiefs, kudos to them. Great job covering that play and designing whatever it was with Chris Jones in the middle and guys crashing on the ends to stop that play, which had been almost automatic for most of this season for the Bills. But I don't know. It's hard to fault them for going to that play because it's been so successful for them throughout the season.
Yeah, James Cook, 13 carries, 85 yards in this. Andy, do you think the Bills went away from the running game early in this contest because it looked like things were getting out of hand and they had to right the ship? But then eventually the ground game starts working. James Cook with 2 touchdowns on the evening, but maybe the Bills a little too early straight away from what the game plan was in this.
I mean, this game was so close, and it did look like for a while there towards the end of the first half, this sucker was going to get away from them, and they were going to get rocked and blown out. And I think the game script and the way things went in the first half, and maybe they were trying to break tendency in the first half by being a little more pass happy than they had been. But I was really concerned because I thought the Bills would have a chance to run the football on the Chiefs. And it turned out I was right. The Chiefs' run defense, while stout throughout the season, wasn't as good the last few weeks of the regular season and into the playoffs. I thought there was some opportunity to run the football, and I do think that the game script and Brady's play calling got them away from James Cook a little bit. I mean, I noticed at one point he only had like 4 carries. He had 1 carry at one point when I was several series into the game looking at the stats. He ends up rushing for 6.5 yards per carry. That's pretty darn good, and rushes for 85 yards. And I thought he was really key to the Bills being able to be in the game. But that also depends on your defense holding up to where the point you are in the game and don't feel you have to pass. Once the Bills were able to score late in the first half, then I think they felt more comfortable with reestablishing the run. But it did get away from them a bit there in the first half.
All right, one of the other big things that are going to stick out from this game is, of course, the Josh Allen 4th and 1 that they didn't convert. Also, the play to Dalton Kincaid towards the end. I mean, we get to end of games, Andy, and in our line of work, you're doing other things while getting ready for the post-game show. I didn't realize at the time how close Dalton Kincaid came to catching that. Is this going to go down as one of those tough pills to swallow, like the David Andrews drop on the 2-point conversion for Baltimore a couple of weeks ago? Was it that close that he should have made that catch there?
Yeah, I mean, the Mark Andrews play was a much, much easier 2-point conversion than what Dalton Kincaid had to do. But you would hope that your first-round pick tight end, as tough as that play was, and people were talking about it, Dawson Knox was talking about how difficult that play was to be scrambling and run back towards the football and make the play. But that's the difference between winning and losing against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs. You have to make that play. And yes, it was difficult, but he dove and had a chance to catch it and was in his arms and dropped it. And that ends their season. It's really been a disappointing second season for Dalton Kincaid. A first-round pick, a guy they traded up for, just did not have a great second season. I know there was some injury involved there and things like that, but you've got to have your guys make those kinds of plays. I mean, Allen's doing all he can to scramble and just heave the ball up there, and a guy's got a chance to get it. That is the razor-thin margin that you're dealing with to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. It's disappointing. I mean, he didn't have a bigger impact overall this season. And I think there's also a conversation. We can get into this. We'll get into this a whole lot, I'm sure, in the offseason. But, like, the last few top picks for Brandon Beane and his staff have not been great. I mean, you thought Kincaid was on the come up last season when he had a pretty strong rookie year, but this season has been a major sophomore slump. You look at Kaiir Elam, I'm sure we'll get into that as well. I mean, a first-round pick, and he's inactive most of the time and then gets picked on when he comes into the game tonight. And then Coleman, he's just a rookie, but, I mean, he's had his ups and downs too. So you need more out of your top guys, especially for a team that is dealing with salary cap issues like they were this season and paying a quarterback what they're paying Josh Allen and probably giving him a raise at some point. You got to have those young guys and those top 2-3 picks step up, and that hasn't happened for the Bills lately.
I had Kincaid having a breakout year, a monster year. I don't know.
So many did.
If you remember our pre-camp thing and or going into the season, who's going to shock you? I had Dalton Kincaid having a monster year, and it's almost like, well, you already had Dawson Knox there, who delivers more often than Dalton Kincaid does. So it's almost like a wasted pick. You bring up Kaiir Elam, and, you know, horrible for Christian Benford. A concussion 2 weeks in a row. You watching that play, you could see him start to stumble trying to get back out on the field, and ultimately the team and his teammates stepped in and didn't let him out there. But if you're watching the broadcast, literally right before that play, Tony Romo says the Bills can't afford to not have Christian Benford out in a game like this. And then sure enough, like you pointed out, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid went right after Kaiir Elam. Elam was playing way off the line on his coverage and just allowing these easy pitch and catches and then the Chiefs were able to get a lot of yards after the catch in this one too. And there was one play where Elam was nowhere near the guy he was covering, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to get too much into like how far off a guy is playing pre-snap or like post-snap, because that might be by design of the defense, but they definitely picked on him. And I know there was one play where he got lost in man coverage and a guy went wide open. I think that's the play you're referring to.
Yep.
And it's just not good enough. Like, for whatever reason, he can't consistently stay on the field because of whatever happens in practice and then maybe in games, whatever. We've seen him have ups and downs. We've seen him get beat and then come back with interceptions, but there was none of that in this game. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, you know, Kaiir Elam's fully to blame for this, but it just has not been a good 3 years for him. I don't think anyone would argue otherwise for a guy that you traded up for in the first round. It just has not worked for whatever reason. You know, it'll be interesting as we talk off-season stuff here, what the Bills decide they want to do with him, whether that's just let him walk, keep him around for depth. Maybe they can get a late-round pick for him. I don't know. You know, losing Benford hurts. I mean, he's been a fantastic corner. There was a lot of talk that he could even be all-pro, and I think he got some votes for that. And he's your number one corner, and he's a fantastic player. So to lose a guy like Benford, yeah, it's very difficult.
Do you think Patrick Mahomes ran the ball a little more than expected in this one? I mean, the Bills had a really good game plan against the Ravens to keep Lamar Jackson in check. Do they maybe get away because Patrick Mahomes isn't as mobile as he maybe was a few years ago, and they kind of took advantage of that, giving him the option to pass it or to run? I mean, I could think of like 3 plays off the top of my head where he just rolls out to the right and no one's near him and he just keeps going.
Yeah, and they even threw in some designed runs for Mahomes. One was a big fourth down, which they have not been running him by design at all the last couple of years, just because they want to keep him healthy, and that's not his forte anymore. I mean, it was devastating to have him keep running and picking up first downs. I mean, he rushes 11 carries for 43 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, who's known as the much more prolific runner and scrambler, 11 carries, 39 yards, but no touchdowns. So, I mean, it's just a completely flip of the script there. And it was puzzling because I think you and I talked about this last week. They did such a decent job of mixing things up against Lamar Jackson, who can run and scramble. And I know it's a completely different offense with Derrick Henry there and the way that they're trying to play, but they didn't really seem to have a good answer for Mahomes scrambling, and maybe they were willing to live and die by that and give it up, but it really hurt them. And we've seen it time and time again that even if Mahomes doesn't do it a ton, it's very timely typically when he does it. And in fact, he did do it quite a bit in this game.
Yeah, Travis Kelce held to just 2 receptions again, like during the regular season. But is Xavier Worthy and what he did in this game as troubling for Bills fans as they were worried about if he went off? I mean, 85 yards, 6 catches and a touchdown in this. The dude played a role in the Chiefs beating the Bills. The guy the Chiefs got by making a trade with the Bills during the draft.
Yeah, I mean, and it just doesn't look great because, Keon Coleman was basically a non-factor. 1 catch, 12 yards on 4 targets, and just you can see that he just struggles to get open, and that was the knock on him. And one of the plays late before the Bills scored was on the Curtis Samuel was a fade to Keon Coleman, and that just is that's not your best play. So I didn't care so much about it trading with the Chiefs at the time, but the more things happen like this, it again doesn't look great for you because Worthy has been much more involved and more impactful, I think, than Keon Coleman was. I do think, though, Coleman was really coming on before he got that injury and then missed 4 games or whatever it was, right, because that may have derailed him in some of his progress. So, I mean, I'm not going to say that Keon Coleman's a bust or anything like that. It's his first season. He did okay, but he was not as impactful, and especially in this game, not really impactful at all. At least in the passing statistics. I'm sure he was in on a lot of running plays, and he usually plays almost the most snaps of any wide receiver. So, it's not to say he's not impactful, but it doesn't look great for the Bills fans who are prone to say, oh my God, why would you ever trade with the Chiefs again, especially after you gave them Mahomes, right? So it just, whether you agree with in principle, it doesn't feel good for Bills fans to watch a guy that the Chiefs traded up with the Bills for. Not only did the Bills not take him, but they allowed their biggest rival to take him. And I understand the sentiment there, and that's tough.
I will say this about Keon Coleman, Andy. At some point this season, he drew a pass interference on one of those jump balls. And to me, it seems like he goes for the pass interference instead of trying to get the ball 9 times out of 10. There are balls that it looks to me like he should just go up and get, but he feels someone's hand on him and tries to embellish, and it wasn't working. I saw it in this game. I saw it in other games where had he just gone up like he does when he really wants the ball, he could have made the catch.
Yeah, and that's kind of the knock on him is that it's hard to get pass interference calls when you didn't separate from your guy to begin with, right? It's one thing if you gain some space and then you're going up to make the catch and a guy knocks into you. But when you can't get away from the guy to begin with and you're just rustling and hand fighting and pushing both each other all the way down the field, it's hard to get those calls, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It sticks out to me with his gameplay. We talked about legacies going into this game and who needs to do what and what needs to happen. And I believe you and I talked at some point on how this was a big game for Sean McDermott. Josh Allen will be out on the field. Josh Allen will be Josh Allen and do everything he can. But as a defensive-minded coach going up against Andy Reid, is more flack going to be coming Sean McDermott's way?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear the echoes of sentiments that people have had for years that Sean McDermott has been a great defensive coach during the regular season and for some playoff games, but then in those big spots, and I know you're playing Patrick Mahomes. I know that you're playing the Chiefs, but how else are you ever going to defeat this team if at some point in a big spot, whether in the fourth quarter, whether it's after you turn the ball over on downs on a fourth down and you stop them from going down and getting a touchdown, or later on another turnover on downs, you stop them from getting the go-ahead field goal. You have to have that at some point. I know everyone says you've got to bolster the offense and you've got to go out there and and outscore Patrick Mahomes. Well, you have to stop him at some point. Like, you can't always say that, all right, Josh Allen is going to go put on the cape and you're going to have the ball last and score. Well, sometimes the Chiefs are going to have the ball last. So you got to come up with a stop. I thought they turned the tide early in the second half, but it makes you wonder whether Andy Reid has the number of what they're trying to do in the whole game. Yes, you can talk about individual sequences where the Bills defense looked better and improved and got better. But when the chips are down, look, it's not good enough. You gave up 32 points. You only scored 29. You should still be able to try to win against a team that hadn't scored over 30 all season long. So it's another time in a big spot where the defense just wasn't good enough, and you can blame injuries and all those things, and that seems to be the difference. These games are literally won by 3 points, right?
Right.
Last year it was 3 points, 13 seconds, right? Like, all of these games. I mean, the AFC Championship game in 2020, following the 2020 season, wasn't close. But I think that was kind of the plucky Bills. They're on the rise. All right, now we're going to come back. Well, you don't get all these opportunities to get back. I mean, you're grinding at it time and time again. And, I mean, Peyton Manning did not beat Tom Brady, I think, for 5 tries, and then he finally did. And I think he ended up having a better playoff record against Brady. I think Manning ended up with more wins over Brady than Brady over Manning, right? I think he ended up winning the series, but it doesn't matter, right? For Bills fans, like, Allen and the Bills cannot get over these rivals. And I'd like to see the defense stiffen up at some point and not allow them to just run all over the field.
So you use the Brady Manning comparison. The year the Colts finally got over the Patriots hurdle, as I recall, Patriots had like no offensive firepower whatsoever going into the playoffs that year. They ended up running into a Chargers team that couldn't get out of their own way, then jumped up to a 21-3 lead on the Colts in the AFC Championship game, and Peyton Manning settled down and was able to come back. But like you said, it took a while for Peyton Manning to get there and get over the hurdle. I just think right now with Josh Allen and what's going on with the Bills, they're wasting a lot of opportunities right now to become something special, because right now they're nothing while the Kansas City Chiefs are doing what they're doing.
And they did nothing to change the narrative here, right? Like, they can't win the big game when it matters most. They can't beat the Chiefs, right? I mean, the Bengals knocked them off the one year, but it's been the Chiefs. And this is the rivalry in the NFL, and they just can't get it done. And it feels like the Bills' 4 Super Bowl losses. They weren't all to the same team, but they just can't get it done in the clutch in the big situation, whatever reason that is. And man, I feel for Bills fans. I grew up in Buffalo. I grew up in Jamestown in Western New York, and I know how much it means to the people and how much they want to see their team not only get to the Super Bowl, but to win one. And you have so few opportunities to get this close. And when you have a generational talent, which Josh Allen is, absolutely. I mean, if he gets to a Super Bowl and wins 1 or 2, I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, people will think. And I think it's hard to watch it and to wonder, like, what is it going to take? And, at some point, are you going to need a change of coach? I don't know. I'm not calling for that. I don't think Sean McDermott's on the hot seat, but it brings up those points. Andy Reid just could never get over the hump. And finally, he left the He left the Eagles. They bottomed out. I think they were 4-12 or something, his final season with the Eagles, and then it was time to say goodbye. So I don't think McDermott's in trouble right now at all. But yeah, you're wasting one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, maybe the most physically gifted quarterback we've ever seen in Josh Allen, in a year where he took care of the football. That was the knock on him. Like, what else does he need to do? And they still can't get over the hump. He didn't turn the ball over today. He put it in harm's way a few times.
I was going to say, he got a little reckless with it.
Yeah, he looked a little hopped up to begin that game and maybe nervous. And I think I counted 4 or 5 different times, either through, throwing the ball that what could have been interceptions, or putting the ball on the ground and recovering it himself. Maybe it was 5 times that he put the ball in harm's way, more than he really had all season. But in any case, he's magnificent this season. They got to get more around him. They've got to get some receivers who can get open a little bit better. And, obviously they've got to address whatever the problems are on defense, especially the pass rush, because they don't seem to be able to get that right for whatever reason. And you need it in a big game like this. I mean, you had a couple of times where they got Mahomes, but the big one to force, take him out of field goal range at one point, and then another one later to force the late field goal. But still, you got to have more consistently, because you're talking about again beating one of the greatest teams ever, right? Which we can all say the Chiefs are the greatest assemblage of quarterback and coach and the talent around them to continue this. So to do that, you've got to do special things and have game records and stars. The Bills just have not really produced that.
And now the Chiefs with a chance to win 3 straight Super Bowls, Andy, which is incredible. I mean, I think not most of the country, most of the world, I think, who watched the NFL wanted the Bills to win this game and knock the Chiefs off. Just not enough. I mean, it's the game of football, Andy. The Bills, for some reason, own them during the regular season, but it's almost like the Chiefs really don't care what happens during the regular season. We'll take care of business and give you our A game when it matters most.
Which is crazy, because they basically went 15-1 when they cared during the regular season.
Right.
Right? They look like crap most of the time doing it. Here we are, right? Like, they're going to the Super Bowl again. I mean, it just feels inevitable. I mean, dude, it's Mahomes he's unflappable, right? Like, and for whatever reason, whatever he has and Reed has and Kelsey has, it rubs off on the rest of the team, and they make enough plays, and sometimes the other team makes a mistake, and the Bills made a couple of mistakes tonight, and it cost them.
There you go. Locker cleanout up next for the Bills. I'm sure we'll hear from Brandon Beane at some point later in the week, Andy, but that's it. It's so funny with the NFL and sports in general, how quickly things just come to an end.
Yeah, I mean, like, here we are with our bosses, like, going over all these Super Bowl plans and who's going to New Orleans and, hotels and coverage plans and all those sorts of things from our perspective. I'm sure, fans are talking about booking flights and hotels and hoping they can go. And then all of a sudden you have the final 3 minutes of that game and kaput, it's over. Yeah. Right. And we're doing the same thing that we've been doing for how many years now?
Yeah.
It's crazy the way sports work, but it's also why we love sports. It's why we hate sports. It's like, it's one of those only things where it's entertainment, but it feels like real life, because, there is some finality in the way things happen to people sometimes. And then great things happen too. And that's kind of like sports is a microcosm of that. So, we're getting transcendental here. We're getting deep on you.
little deep late on a Sunday night, Monday morning.
It's been a crazy season. We talked so much about were the Bills taking a step back this year, right?
Right.
And all the changes. And for that, if you would have told people, back in March and April when things were, maybe in question, that, hey, this team's going to go to the Super Bowl or go to the AFC Championship game and be, have Josh Allen with the ball in his hands with 3 minutes left to try to get the Bills to the Super Bowl, you're taking that all day.
Absolutely.
Right? It doesn't feel good now. But it's been a wild season full of ups and downs. I think the Bills found an identity. I think that, Joe Brady's coming back, right? So like you can continue some of that stuff. You'll go into the draft and you'll get some things figured out. Before we go, also want to say like a shout out to Bills Mafia and all the people who watched this show and been on our podcast and watched our post-game show with Stevie Johnson. It's been a really nice success for us here at Spectrum News. And, it's been a joy to like bring this stuff to you. And my first full year on the beat it has been awesome. So thanks to all you listeners and viewers at home too.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this season has been great. We had the live podcast with Stevie Johnson leading into the playoffs at Big Ditch. I mean, it's been fun. It's been a real exciting season to cover the Bills. Would have loved to be headed down to New Orleans, Andy, but my niece is happy. I'll be going up to the White Mountains in New Hampshire to go skiing Super Bowl weekend like I've done since Josh Allen and Sean McDermott started going on these runs. Never quite made it to the Super Bowl, but again, there's always next year.
Yeah, and I do have to say, my son Julian, who is 6 years old, like was a Bills fan, and then all of a sudden, like it's one of those weird kid things where he decided he didn't like everyone talking about the Bills all the time. Decided 2 years ago that he liked the Chiefs all of a sudden.
Oh God!
So he's, hey, everybody at school, leave him alone in his first grade classroom, please. He keeps it to himself. I got to tell a funny story. He said that they had a pep rally on Friday at school, and they were all singing like "Let's Go Buffalo" and stuff. And he's going, "Dad, I was singing it, but really I was rooting for the Chiefs in my head." So, I picked up some confetti for him off the field, and I'll bring that home. He'll probably end up being a Bills fan later in his life, but it's one of those things where I had a lot of friends growing up who. Everybody likes the Bills, so I'm going to like somebody else. And that's the stage he's going through. But just one of those weird things about kids, right?
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I mean, I grew up in New England. Everyone were Patriot fans in my family except for me. I like the Dolphins. I like the Bills. And I like the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right.
Anybody but the Patriots. Couldn't stand the Patriots.
They kind of stunk back then, too, didn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, they went to that Super Bowl against the Bears where the Bears kicked the crap out of them.
Yeah.
I think they had a good run in the late 70s when I was really little, but...
Right. They were really bad like in the early 90s, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was away at
That's when I remember them because that was when I was a younger kid, yeah.
Yeah, that was like the reverse. Like the Bills were dominant and the Patriots were winning 1 or 2 games a year, so... Little kids will be that way, Andy. Maybe he'll come around. All right. We're going to wrap up the season, Andy, but we'll be back as the Bills.
I think I'm freezing up on you, but yeah.
As the Bills have their end of the year media events, we'll have more, including Locker Cleanout, and hear from Brandon Bean. As always, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Andy and I will still be coming your way with the Buffalo End Zone podcast with all the off-season stuff and all the news that goes on during the off-season, so we're not going away. But thanks for joining us throughout the season, and we'll see you down the road.